All right, Money in the Bank 2013 has just finished, and I guess I'm going to give a brief review of it. Now, the show started with what is maybe like actually one of the better tag team matches I've seen as of late. And that was the kickoff preview, and that was the Shield of Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns versus the Usos. The biggest problem with this match was the fact that there were two commercial breaks. This is a fucking pre-show. You do not need to advertise the pay-per-view. It's a pre-show too. Well, besides that, the pacing was actually kind of well done. I mean, it was kind of slow at first, but you sort of expect that after a while. And I liked that the Usos were bringing out a little bit of different offense, and they were doing some pretty clever tag tricks. For example, instead of just dragging one Uso away or like dragging one guy away so that he can't tag, one guy the guy who was on the apron went to the other guy on the apron and pulled him off, and that was actually kind of clever, especially when they did the turnaround on it, and the good guys did it to the bad guys eventually. There was one really big moment which I actually expected to see something similar in the latter matches where like they were doing a suplex but into a back suplex but into a powerbomb, those sort of things. And the second half, I have to say, was actually really well done, and really well done and really well built up to. Uh, and because of the thing I said before, where they turned around a lot of tricks onto the opponents, this actually did create some really good shocking moments. Anyway, this was a darn good match. It was certainly better than the average pre-show. It was longer, and for the pace increase, it felt a lot more substantial. The Shield retained with actually a pretty good ending sequence where Seth Rollins hit one Uso with the turnbuckle bomb, and then Roman Reigns followed it up with the power with his spear. So yeah, the Shield retains. I give the match 8 or 9 out of 10. Pretty darn good thing to give away for free. And they continued this thing they've been doing since WrestleMania, and I've actually liked this. The panels. This time it was with Kofi, Big Show, and Vicky of all people. And it was actually a nice way to set up some context for a few of the later matches. Anyway, on the actual card was the World Heavyweight Championship Money in the Bank ladder match, or as I called it, the mid card ladder match. And yeah, this ladder match was amazing. This was an incredible ladder match. It was with Dean Ambrose, Damien Sandow, Cody Rhodes, Jack Swagger, Wade Barrett, Fandango, and Antonio Cesaro. I'm not sure if this match would have worked in any other city, because the fucking crowd here loved everyone. I have to say, like, the great crowd that was here had their own favorites in this match. But you know what? That meant they responded to everything, and a lot of the spots they did with the ladders were just so creative and just so innovative. In a word, it was chaotically enjoyable, and it was really smart. A lot of the stuff they would pull off. It actually reminded me a lot of the Dudley's Christian and Edge and Hardy Boy matches from the old days, and the really fast pace just really made it so much fun. The ending was actually pretty darn smart, if I remember it correctly. Cody Rhodes had pretty much spent the entire match just repeatedly stealing the show and getting the best reaction, which, considering how everyone in this match had a moment where they stood out, that has to say something about how good of a job he did. And then, right as he was about to get the briefcase, Sandow pushed him off the ladder, and he went up and got the briefcase himself. So the Money in the Bank winner for the World Heavyweight Championship Money in the Bank, Damien Sandow, my boy. I was surprised as hell by this, and I think a lot of other people were too. But yeah, I really like this ending, and I gotta see where this will go. So this is probably gonna lead into a Sandow Cody Rhodes feud, and I gotta see where that goes. The next thing after this was a short Brad Maddox promo. It was pretty much just shitting on Vicky Guerrero. I think the idea was to drop the pace a bit, because like for a start that fast. Oh yeah, I gave the match a 9 or 10 out of 10. That it was a fucking amazing match. But anyway, the Brad Maddox promo that was shortly afterwards, it was pretty much just it seemed almost intentionally lame, and it just seemed like it was something that was deliberately intended to cut momentum, you know. But you know, all it did was kind of shit on Vicky, and it went on for a little longer than I think it did, and I think for trying to slow down the pace, I think it did its job a little too well. All right, but shortly afterwards was The Miz versus Curtis Axel. One of the early spots of the match was Miz faked getting hit by Paul Heyman, and he is not clever enough to, or he is not charming enough to pull that off without, you know, the audience turning on him, and the crowd there hated The Miz, so they're not gonna try to root for him. This match was pretty much average, but the thing I liked about it was that Curtis Axel actually won clean. Most heels, you know, get off with like really, really bad or like do really extreme tactics to try to beat their opponents, but Curtis Axel just won clean. So that was nice to see, but it was just an average match. Curtis Axel retains 6 out of 10 for the match. Afterwards was AJ Lee versus Kaitlyn. This was average for Divas, but it was still a below average match. AJ actually did pull off some interesting offense, and she was actually really good at selling, but the crowd was just not that interested, and I don't think they did enough differently in order to really justify this match. Kaitlyn once again loses by tapping out to the Octopus, which they're calling the Black Widow for some reason. Another clean victory by AJ Lee. So, but again, that's really nice, but the match itself was unremarkable. I gave it 5 out of 10. After that was another panel with Vicky, Big Show, and Kofi, and it was actually a nice way of speculating, like what will happen on Raw or on TV, based on the results of the pay-per-view so far, and that's actually kind of a nice way to, you know, try to excite the viewers into whatever might be coming up next. After this was Chris Jericho versus Ryback. The crowd started off really dead, and Ryback seemed really unenthusiastic during the beginning. But the turning point came when Jericho took a really rough bump off the apron and just barely nicked one of the tables, and I think might have hurt his ribs. And after that, Jericho pulled off some offense that was actually really impressive to do on Ryback. And Ryback started portraying a monster a little bit better than he usually does. He started pulling off some really impressive power moves. And something that I really liked about the second half of this match was the fact that they were actually doing some pretty impressive reversal setups. I mean, the execution wasn't the best on them, but the reversal setups was actually pretty good. And once again, the heel won in Ryback. And he did it again, simple and clean. It wasn't some elaborate overbooked mess. It was just a simple roll-up, and he fucking beat Jericho. Which, again, is weirdly refreshing to see. It was actually a good match with just a really slow start, but after a while, it does improve. I give this match a 7 out of 10. Anyway, shortly after this was Dolph Ziggler versus Alberto Del Rio for the World Heavyweight Championship. The fucking crowd adored Ziggler. They freaking exploded when his music hit. And I gotta say, the pace control of this match was pretty good. They kind of understood, you know, what the audience really needed. But it kind of continued the psychology of the previous match, which was like basically Ziggler being a punching bag for Del Rio. And it was stiff to the point of worry. You could hear some of the noises that Ziggler was making, and it sounded brutal. And I gotta say, ADR pulled out a pretty damn incredible move arsenal that while it's not untypical of him, it just looks really good to me. The second half was just, and you know, the second half, as a lot of these other matches have been, it was again really, really good. But the problem is the ending felt like kind of a cheat. Fucking AJ just comes out, distracts Dolph for a while, but then as Dolph is turning the momentum for no fucking reason, AJ comes in, slams the Divas Championship over fucking Del Rio's face. Ziggler gets DQ'd. Rio retains, and I think this was a clever way to make people forget about Damien Sandow, because as everyone was focusing on Ziggler and AJ Lee, no one could remember that Sandow won the Money in the Bank, but obviously since ADR just kind of got up a little bit afterwards after getting hit with the title, or the Divas Championship, he just kind of got out of dodge, and nobody even started chanting Sandow or anything. So that might have been the intent, but it kind of came off like a big cheat, and because of that, a lot of the ending just sort of felt flat. So I gave the match a 7 out of 10, but I'm expecting this feud to continue until SummerSlam. Anyway, next match. This surprised the hell out of me. Mark Henry versus John Cena. No, the match itself didn't surprise the hell out of me that much. But what surprised me was that this wasn't the main event. This has got to be the first John Cena match that is not the main event, and I've seen it in a long time. And thank God for that. From the beginning, Mark Henry just grounded the hell out of John Cena, but in a way that actually kind of worked. It's weirdly engaging because even though it's very slow-paced, Mark Henry actually did a much better job of portraying a monster than I've ever seen him do here. They really did a good job of making him just feel like an unstoppable brick wall that John Cena must overcome. And I know this is an old in-ring story, but it's well told, especially for a John Cena match. But after... And the ending sequence, like in the last 2/3, or in the last third, I should say, that felt a lot more like just standard Cena fare. You know, they kick out of his finisher, he kicks out of their finisher, puts on a submission, boom, 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 win. But you know what? This was an above-average Cena match. The ending felt a little cheap with fucking Mark Henry tapping out of the STF way too fast. But you know what? A good Cena match. You know, that's got to say something. I got to wonder where they're going to go with this. Shortly after, I gave this 7 or 8 out of 10. Again, above average Cena match. For some reason, they went to another panel of Kofi, Big Show, and Vicky after this, and it just seemed like a play-by-play trying to put Cena over. Cena does not need to be put over any more than he already has been. And I gotta say, this next match is probably the biggest disappointment of the night, and that is the WWE Championship Money in the Bank ladder match. It was hard to put the participants with CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Rob Van Dam, Randy Orton, Christian, and Sheamus. I need to clarify something. I said that there would be a mystery man. There is not. I was confused and probably took someone's word in it that I should not have taken. And so there was no mystery man. The biggest problem with this match was that it was paced like a one-on-one ladder match would be, and I don't think that took advantage of how many people were in this match. And I think that just made it feel very bleh most of the time. And most of the biggest surprise moments came from two things. Daniel Bryan, who during the last third of the match got a lot of momentum and got really, really over. But the other thing that kind of brought it up was a little bit of a Paul Heyman segment where Curtis Axel stopped Daniel Bryan from getting the Money in the Bank ladder match, or from getting the Money in the Bank briefcase, I should say, and frickin' CM Punk GTS's Curtis Axel. Paul Heyman comes out trying to root for CM Punk, and then while Punk is climbing the ladder, he frickin' smacks CM Punk with another ladder and busts 3 times and busts him wide open. RVD tries to get the briefcase. And by the way, RVD was hugely over in this match and actually was really entertaining during the early third, or during the very early part of the match. And Randy Orton RKO's RVD, and then he climbs up and gets the briefcase. So I'm wondering where they're going to go with this, because this is going to be the first time Randy Orton has been in the main event for actually a while, or I should say in the title picture, because for the last while, he's just been sort of meandering about, so I'm actually interested in where they're going to go with this. But the match itself, the ladder match itself, it seems like more story-focused, and I'm not sure whether that's the best thing to have in a ladder match. But because of that, I gave the match only 6 or 7 out of 10. It just felt a little too overbooked, and the action was way too slow for this sort of match. And that's my thoughts on Money in the Bank. And how was it overall? Well, it was a very easy show to watch. You know, it felt very smooth as I continued to, just view upon it. And I gotta say, there was nothing truly horrible in this. That's a weird compliment to give WWE, but there was nothing where I was just like, that sucked or whatever. I really did like this pay-per-view. I gave it 8 out of 10. Its biggest problem is that its main event didn't deliver, and They really should have put that tag match on the main card, but I'm still giving it credit for that. Yeah, the biggest problem was that its main event didn't deliver as well as it should have, but I will give it a lot of credit for doing this. It built up a lot of superstars, and it actually does make me want to find out what's going to happen on Raw tomorrow, because this has set up a lot of feuds that really could continue very, very well. So as far as a booked pay-per-view, I gotta say, this is a very well booked pay-per-view. So yeah, that's I gave it 8 out of 10. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Money in the Bank 2013. What did you guys think? Be sure to leave comments down in the. Be sure to leave a comment down below on what you thought of this pay-per-view. So anyway, this has been Mr. Sanders. If you liked what I've been doing so far, be sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See you later.